Welcome amigos to another exciting After Effects tutorial. This is CM de la Vega. We're gonna do some camera tracking and I'll show you some advanced color grading techniques. This is a beautiful shot of Echo Park. You can see downtown LA in the background. I shot this on the DJI Osmo. It's a cool 4K handheld camera, and this shot I'll make it available for you to download on my website. So let's get started with a tutorial. Let's grab our footage. Let's drag it into the Make New Composition button, and it'll create a comp the same size and frame rate as your footage. Make sure that you're in the composition window. Let's go down and right click on our layer and select Track Camera. And After Effects will do the whole entire job for you. Well, almost. There's a couple things that we need to check. For shot type, we have a couple options. If you're zooming in or zooming out, then select variable zoom. If not, then you can leave it at fixed angle of view. And if we go to advanced for solve method, auto detect does a pretty good job. If that doesn't work, then you can select typical. And if you're doing a tripod pan like we are, then select tripod pan. So once it's done solving for the camera track, make sure that you have your layer selected, you have the effect, and if nothing shows up, click on this little icon, and you're gonna see a whole bunch of dots, or crosses, or X's. They're actually X's. Now if we zoom in, you can see that it's generating this target, and wherever we generate this target, that's where we're gonna place our text, our logo, or whatever element that you wanna composite. So in this case, I wanna put our text right by the water fountain. You need a minimum of 3 points to generate the target. So if you select on the first one and you hold on to shift, you're gonna generate the target, and you can add more points, and just hold on to shift, you can add or subtract. Once you have your target, right click, and you're gonna get a whole bunch of options. And to make life easier, I select create null and camera. Now it created our null object and it created our 3D camera. So if we go to the top view, and if I show you the keyframes, you can see that this is our virtual camera. So let's create our text. Let's create a text. Let's call this Los Angeles. Has a nice Dodger blue. And if you guys like the font, it's called Blessed Day. And today's a beautiful day out here in LA, and it's truly blessed. And if you're watching this, that means you're alive. Even if you're feeling a little bit down like I am, look at the bright side. You're alive today. So it's truly a blessed day. Now let's play back, and it's not sticking to our scene. And the reason is, it's because we need to make this text a 3D layer. So let's activate the 3D switch, and there it is. It's in our scene. Now remember the null object that we created. Let's place our text right by the null object. So let's go to the position properties, and we're gonna copy the X, Y, and Z values and paste it into our text. I'm sorry, P. And it's, believe it or not, it's right by our null object. It's on the same plane. If we go to the top view and if we change the color, just to show you, this is our null object right here, and our text is on the same plane. We just have to make a couple tweaks to the scale and the rotation. Let's scale it down a little bit, maybe like 90, and let's move it over. Let's move it a little bit up. And we can rotate it towards us, and maybe a little bit of rotation. Now, amigos, this null object, I use it as a starting point. If it looks good right off the bat, then just leave it. But you might have to tweak it. And remember, nothing's set in stone, but always use it as a good starting point. Now let's jump in and show you some advanced color grading techniques. There's two things that we want to do. We want to darken the sky, give it like a little gradient, and let's brighten up the lake. So let's create a new solid. Make sure it's comp size, make sure that it's black. And let's call this Sky Grad. And let's create a mask. I'm going to show you two methods of creating a mask. The first one is using the linear wipe transition. Go down, we go up to 0, we hit 0, and we bring up the completion. We can feather it, say 350. Now let's select the blending mode. In this case, I think soft light works good. This is trial and error. This, depending on the footage, you're gonna have to experiment with all these different options and see which one gives you the best result. In this case, soft light, I already know soft light works good. And if it's too dark for you, we can always dial it down, go to the opacity, and we can dial it down to 80%. And let's do the same thing for the lake, for the water. Instead of creating a new solid, we can go in, bring in the same solid. Let's call this water grad. And let's create a gradient for the water. And let's give it a color, a light blue. And the second way to create a mask is by using the rectangle tool. Let's draw a rectangle on the bottom half of our footage. Let's go down to the mask properties and let's give it a feather. 350 is a good number. And in this case, I know that overlay will work well. And it might be a little bit too much, so we can dial it down to like 75. It's looking pretty good. Now, as you can see, this part is really bright because the water grad is affecting it. And what we can do is we can slowly fade it in. Let's start it at this point. Let's put a keyframe for opacity. And over here, another keyframe. Let's go back and let's put it to 0. So it'll fade in as we pan to the water. Now, amigos, let me show you the difference without the gradients and with it. This is for the sky and this is for the lake. Looks a lot better. And then the last thing we can do is we can add a flare. Let's call this OF. And if you guys have optical flares, let's go to optical flares. If you guys don't have optical flares, I highly recommend it. It makes your work look so much better. I have the pro presets. Let me show you the ones that I use pretty much 9 out of 10 times. These are the 3 that I use that are my go-to flares: cross color, aura, and blindness. In this case, let's select this one. Let's give it a screen mode for blending mode so we can see the flare. And if we play back, it's not in our scene. We need to make this flare 3D. So going to our flare, going to the positioning mode, if we change it from 2D to 3D, it's in our scene. Now if we go to the top view, we can see that this is our text layer and our flare is right behind it. What we want to do is move our flare way back in the Z space. So let's go back to our active camera. Let's go to our flare and let's move it way back in the Z depth, about 1,000 pixels. And let's move it up in the Y axis. Keep going up. Looks good. And let's move it over on the X axis. Let's do a RAM preview. All right, let's check it out. Nice. It's looking really good, amigos. And instead of text, you can add a logo or any other graphic element. Just be creative. I'll have this footage available to download on my website. Thank you for watching, amigos. Until the next tutorial.